They pulled her aside at the checkpoint like she was nothing. A quiet woman with a worn backpack, just another civilian to push around. The captain made a show of it, emptying her bag across the floor for everyone to see. Some laughed, some looked away. Then something golden slid out, spinning on the polished concrete. A Desert Eagle custom, unmistakable. The room went silent. The older sergeant recognized it instantly. That weapon belonged to a ghost, a legend they all thought was dead. She picked it up calmly, and every uniform in the room snapped to attention. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If this story intrigued you, consider subscribing for more untold tales of those who deserve recognition but never asked for it. The morning sun had barely crested the eastern ridge as Alessandra Risson joined the line at Fort Obsidian's checkpoint. She adjusted the strap of her weathered canvas backpack, her movements economical and precise despite her civilian appearance. The harsh fluorescent lights cast everyone in an unflattering pallor, accentuating the dark circles under her eyes and the fine web of scars along her jawline, marks most would mistake for the remnants of a car accident. Fort Obsidian lived up to its name, a black monolith nestled against the mountainside, its perimeter defined by concrete barriers and concertina wire. Unlike the public F-facing military bases with their visitor centers and museums, this installation existed on no official maps. Those who knew of it spoke in hushed tones, if they spoke of it at all. The checkpoint buzzed with the usual morning traffic, contractors with coffee thermoses, administrative staff tapping away at phones, junior officers rushing to make morning briefings. Alessandra observed it all with quiet detachment, her gaze occasionally fixing on security camera positions or the tactical setup of the guard stations. Captain Bryce Halverson paced behind the security desk, his uniform pressed to perfection, his posture screaming of ambition and self-importance. "Move it along," he barked at a contractor, fumbling with his credentials. "This is not a coffee shop." Alessandra noted how the other guards straightened when Halverson passed, not out of respect, but apprehension. Young officers on their way up were often the most dangerous, eager to prove themselves by finding fault in others. When Alessandra reached the front of the line, she placed her minimal documentation on the counter. The laminated ID card showed her face, but little else, just a contractor designation and clearance level. "Purpose of visit?" the guard asked without looking up. "I have an appointment with General Tarasova," she replied, her voice low and even. That got Halverson's attention. He stepped forward, eyeing her worn jeans and faded jacket with undisguised contempt. "The general does not take appointments with civilians," he said, plucking her ID from the counter, "especially not without prior clearance." Behind him, Sergeant Lovett, a weathered man with salt and pepper hair, glanced up from his station. His eyes narrowed slightly as they met Alessandra's. Something flickered across his face. Uncertainty, perhaps recognition. "Check again," Alessandra said simply. Halverson's jaw tightened. "Step aside for additional screening," he ordered, nodding to two junior officers. Random security check. The waiting area felt quiet as Alessandra was escorted to a clear space in the center of the room. Military personnel and contractors looked on with mild interest at the morning's entertainment. "Arms out," Halverson commanded, circling her like a predator. Alessandra complied without expression, her eyes fixed on some middle distance, as the captain made a show of his authority. "The bag, too," he added, gesturing to her backpack. She hesitated almost imperceptibly. "I would prefer you did not do that." A ripple of murmurs spread through the onlookers. "No one refused, Captain Halverson. This is a secure military facility, not a shopping mall," he replied, voice dripping with condescension. "You do not get preferences here." With a nod from Halverson, the two officers roughly took her backpack. Lieutenant Nazarene Cattery, the younger of the two, caught Alessandra's eye briefly, a flash of apology crossing her features. "Nothing to hide, right?" Halverson said, taking the bag himself and appending it dramatically onto the floor. A journal, some clothes, a small first aid kit tumbled out. He nudged through them with his boot. "All this fuss over your dirty laundry." Alessandra remained still, only the slight tightening of her jaw betraying any reaction. Among the scattered belongings, a small medallion caught the light, rolling to a stop near Sergeant Lovovet's desk. His eyes widened slightly as he recognized the insignia, but he made no comment. Across the room, Sergeant Love had risen slightly from his chair, his attention fixed on Alessandra Unk's wrist as she clenched her fist on what appeared to be a small tattoo barely visible beneath her sleeve. The mark was distinctive, a stylized obsidian cross that matched the medallion now lying on the floor. "Sir," Lieutenant Cattery said quietly, noticing a photograph partially visible among the scattered belongings. It showed a younger Alessandra in partial uniform standing beside a woman who looked remarkably like General Tarasova. Halverson ignored her, his attention fixed on Alessandra's worn leather journal. He picked it up, thumbing through the pages with deliberate slowness. "Let us see what secrets a civilian has that warrant a meeting with General Tarasova," he said, clearly playing to his audience now. Several of the waiting personnel shifted uncomfortably. Even for a security check, this was becoming excessive. When Halverson lifted her journal, threatening to read from it aloud, Alessandra spoke again. "Captain," she said calmly, "that bag has one more item you should be aware of." Halverson laughed, playing to his audience. "Oh, a bomb threat now." He tossed the bag across the polished floor. "Search complete. Nothing dangerous here except wasted time." The bag skidded, spinning slightly as it hit a chair leg. And then it happened. The golden Desert Eagle slid from the bag's side pocket, spinning lazily across the polished floor like a macabre compass needle. Light glinted off its custom engraving, an obsidian cross inlaid against the gold. The room went dead silent. The weapon came to rest, pointing at Sergeant Lovett like an accusation. His face drained of color. "Good Lord," someone whispered. Lieutenant Catter's eyes widened. "Is that the Gibler gun?" Lovett confirmed, his voice barely audible. Everyone in military intelligence knew the story, though few believed it was more than a legend. 5 years ago, a covert operation in Gibler had gone catastrophically wrong. Terrorists had seized the British embassy, taking 38 hostages. Official channels disavowed any involvement, but rumors persisted of a lone operative who had infiltrated the embassy and eliminated 14 hostage-takers despite sustaining multiple gunshot wounds. The operative's signature weapon, a custom Golden Desert Eagle, had become almost mythological in intelligence circles. Alessandra walked forward calmly, the crowd parting before her as if she carried an electric charge. She knelt, picking up the weapon with practiced ease, checking the safety before sliding it into a shoulder holster hidden beneath her jacket. When she straightened, the room had transformed. Sergeant Lovett stood at rigid attention, his arms snapped into a perfect salute. "Major Risson," he said, voice breaking slightly. "We thought you were dead, ma'am." One by one, recognition rippled through the senior personnel. A master sergeant near the coffee machine stood at attention. 2 colonels by the elevators, a communications officer who dropped her clipboard with a clatter. Halverson's confusion was palpable. "What is going on?" he demanded, authority crumbling. "Captain," came a commanding voice from the entrance. "You have just harassed the only recipient of the Obsidian Cross still in active service." General Zefrin Tarasova stood in the doorway, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun, her uniform adorned with a quiet dignity of earned decorations rather than ceremonial flair. Her piercing eyes surveyed the scene with cold calculation. The room stiffened further as Tarasova crossed to where Alessandra stood. To everyone's shock, the general herself knelt to gather the scattered belongings. "The last time I saw this weapon," Tarasova announced to the room, "Major Riston was using it to save 38 hostages in Gibler, while bleeding from 4 gunshot wounds." She handed the journal back to Alessandra with something approaching reverence. "Your mission report was due 5 years ago, Major." Alessandra's lips curved into the ghost of a smile. "I got delayed, General." Captain Halverson had gone pale, understanding now washing over him in sickening waves, his career flashing before his eyes. Every uniform in the room remained fixed at attention, a forest of salutes for a woman who had entered as a nobody and now stood revealed as a legend. General Tarasova broke protocol first, embracing Alessandra briefly. "Welcome home, Ellie," she said quietly. "We mourned you." The gesture sent ripples of shock through the assembled personnel. General Tarasova was known for her iron discipline and adherence to military protocol. No one had ever seen her embrace a subordinate. Lieutenant Cattery stepped forward, gathering the remaining items with careful hands. "Ma'am," she said, offering Alessandra's now folded clothes. "It is an honor." Alessandra nodded her thanks, addressing the room at ease. "What happened here stays here." The personnel relaxed slightly, though many remained stiffly formal in the presence of a living legend. Stories of the Gibberler operation had circulated for years, growing more fantastical with each telling. Some claimed the operative had been a ghost, others that a full tactical team had been sent in under the cover of night. Few had believed the truth, that a single woman had orchestrated the entire rescue. Sergeant Lovett approached, emotion evident in his weathered face. "Major, it is an honor. Your mission in Gibberler saved my nephew." He was one of the embassy's staff. "How is he now?" Alessandra asked, her voice softening for the first time since she had entered the facility. "Married, 2 kids, named his son after you." "Well, your code name? Little Phantom Lovett." He smiled weakly. "We never knew your real name until now." A flash of genuine warmth crossed Alessandra's face. "Tell him the Phantom sends her regards." Tarasova placed a hand on Alessandra's shoulder. "You have returned at a critical time. The threat you warned us about 5 years ago has materialized." "That is why I am here," Alessandra confirmed, her expression growing serious once more. Captain Halverson stood awkwardly to the side, his earlier bravado completely evaporated. When Alessandra glanced his way, he visibly flinched. Turning to the still, stunned room, Tarasova's voice hardened. "This woman has sacrificed more for her country than anyone in this facility. Her very existence is classified." Her gaze fell on Halverson. "Captain, report to my office at 0800 tomorrow for reassignment." Halverson's face went ashen. Reassignment from Fort Obsidian typically meant a career death sentence. Exile to some remote listening post or administrative role far from any path to advancement. Alessandra surprised everyone by intervening. General, the captain was doing his job. Security should be tight. She turned to Halverson, her eyes unreadable. "But next time, remember that respect costs nothing." Halverson, career hanging by a thread, could only nod. As Lieutenant Cattery handed Alessandra her repacked bag, now treated with reverence by those who had mocked it minutes before, the Major nodded her thanks. "Lieutenant, I could use someone with your attention to detail. Report to General Tarasova's office after your shift," Alessandra said quietly. Catter's eyes widened. "Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am." The crowd began to disperse, returning to their duties with new energy, eager to share what they had witnessed with those who had not been present. By nightfall, the legend of the Golden Desert Eagle and its owner would have spread throughout the entire base. Tarasova gestured toward the secure elevators. "We have much to discuss, Major. The intelligence you sent from deep cover has been crucial, but there are gaps. Significant gaps." As they walked, personnel saluted or nodded respectfully. The change from her reception mere minutes ago was striking. Alessandra moved differently now as well, her posture more commanding, her eyes alert and assessing, no longer playing the role of an unremarkable civilian. 5 years is a long time, General Alessandra said. "I was beginning to think my warnings had been forgotten." "Never forgotten," Tarasova replied firmly. "But there were those who found them inconvenient. Political winds shift. Security priorities change. You know how it goes." "Some things never change," Alessandra said, her hand brushing against the holstered Desert Eagle. They entered Tarasova's private elevator, the doors sliding shut behind them. Only when they were alone did Tarasova allow her stern facade to crack slightly. "We really did think you were dead, Ellie. After Tangier, when your tracking signal went dark," the general said, her voice heavy with old grief. "The extraction team found blood. Your blood, but no body." That was the point, Alessandra replied. I needed everyone to believe I was gone, especially within our own ranks. The intel suggested a high leak. The elevator descended deep into the mountain, far below the public F-facing levels of Fort Obsidian. Few personnel had clearance for these depths where the most sensitive operations were planned and monitored. Did you identify the source? Tarasova asked. That is why I am here, Alessandra repeated more grimly this time. The elevator doors opened to reveal a dimly lit operations center. Screens displayed satellite imagery and data feeds from around the world. A handful of senior officers worked quietly at various stations, their conversations hushed and focused. They all looked up as Tarasova and Alessandra entered, conversations halting mid-sentence. Like a wave, recognition and surprise swept across their faces. Colonel Javier Dominguez, head of Special Operations, actually dropped his coffee mug. Ghost, he whispered using her old field designation. It is really you. In the flesh, Alessandra replied. Disappointed, Javier. The colonel's face flushed. Of course not. Just surprised. Pleasantly surprised. Tarasova led Alessandra to a private briefing room off the main operations center. Once sealed inside, she activated a series of security protocols, shutting down all electronic surveillance. Old school, she explained, pulling a pen and paper from her desk. Some conversations should not leave traces, even here. Alessandra nodded approvingly. The organization I have been tracking calls themselves Obsidian Shard. Ironic considering this facility's name. A splinter faction? Tarasova asked sharply. In a manner of speaking, they are comprised primarily of former intelligence officers, military personnel, and government officials from various nations. Their unifying belief is that traditional nation-states are obsolete and vulnerable. They propose a new world order governed by what they call the competent few. Sounds like garden-variety megalomaniacs, Tarasova observed, though her expression remained grave. Their resources suggest otherwise, Alessandra replied. They have infiltrated multiple intelligence agencies, military commands, and governmental bodies, and they are in the final stages of an operation they call Shattered Mirror. Timetable: 72 hours based on communications I intercepted before my cover was compromised. Tarasova sank into her chair. That is why you surfaced now. You could have sent a message through your usual channels. The usual channels may be compromised, Alessandra said. And what I discovered requires direct action, not reports and committees. She reached into her bag and removed a small hard drive, placing it on the table between them. Everything I gathered over 5 years, names, operations, plans, including senior members within our own government. Tarasova stared at the drive as if it might detonate. How high does it go? Cabinet level, Alessandra said flatly. Possibly higher. The general's face hardened. That explains the resistance I encountered when I pushed to continue the search for you. The convenient budget cuts to the Gibberler investigation. They needed me gone because I got too close in Tangier. Alessandra confirmed. What they did not anticipate was that their assassination attempt would provide the perfect cover for me to go deeper. And now they believe one of their own is arriving at Fort Obsidian today using credentials they provided. A woman who would be granted access to the Norse defense system. Tarasova's eyes widened. Norse. That is what they are after. Control of America's autonomous orbital defense platform would give them leverage over every major power. Alessandra explained, the perfect tool for their competent few to impose their new world order. And you plan to be this woman? I already am this woman, Alessandra said, producing another ID card from her pocket. Margot Verne, System Specialist, authorized by the Secretary of Defense himself to perform a security audit on Norse. The ID looked authentic, right down to the specialized holographic security features that were supposed to be impossible to duplicate. The Secretary is one of them, Tarasova realized. Or being manipulated by one of them, Alessandra said. Either way, this authorization is genuine. Pass through all the proper channels. So we spring their trap, Tarasova said, understanding dawning. use their own operation against them. Exactly. Alessandra confirmed. But to do that, I need a team I can trust. Absolutely. People with no possible connection to Obsidian Shard. That young lieutenant seems promising. Tarasova suggested. Kateri. No connections to Washington. Recruited directly from MIT. Brilliant cryptographer. Add her to the list. Alessandra agreed. And Sergeant Lovett. His connection to Gibler gives him personal motivation. Tarasova nodded, making notes. Anyone else? Alessandra considered for a moment. Captain Halverson. The general looked up, surprised. The man who just humiliated you in front of half the base? Are you certain? His arrogance makes him predictable, Alessandra explained. And his ambition makes him unlikely to be part of a shadow organization that would require him to remain hidden. He wants recognition too badly. A fair assessment, Tarasova conceded. I will have them assembled within the hour. What else do you need? Alessandra's hand drifted to the golden desert eagle at her side. Just what I already have, General. A weapon and a purpose. Tarasova studied her old friend, noting the new hardness in her eyes, the additional scars that had not been there 5 years ago. The woman who left for Gibler was a soldier following orders, the one who returned as something else entirely. We are what life makes us, Alessandra replied simply. And I have seen how the world really works. Later that evening, Alessandra and Tarasova walked down a quiet corridor, their footsteps echoing in the empty hall. The day had been spent briefing the hastily assembled team, reviewing intelligence, and preparing for the operation that would begin at dawn. 5 years in deep cover, Tarasova said, breaking the companionable silence. Was it worth it? Alessandra considered the question carefully. We will know soon. They are planning something that goes beyond taking control of Norse. The defense platform is just one piece of a larger strategy. What happens if we fail? Tarasova asked, her voice uncharacteristically vulnerable. We will not fail, Alessandra replied simply. The team is good, Lieutenant. Kateri has already identified 3 potential access points to the Norse control systems that even I was unaware of. She reminds me of you before Gibler. Tarasova observed. Brilliant, dedicated, idealistic. Let's hope she stays that way, Alessandra said quietly. Idealism is the first casualty of this kind of work. They turned a corner and entered a section of the facility few ever visited. The memorial hall stretched before them, its walls lined with bronze plaques bearing the names of operatives lost in service to their country. Most missions were classified, most deaths officially denied. This hall was their only recognition. They paused before a particular section of the wall. Tarasova's finger traced one name in particular. Mage Alessandra Risson, Gibraltar Operation. Should we remove it? Tarasova asked. Alessandra studied her own name among the fallen. Not yet. The woman I was did die out there. And who came back? Tarasova asked quietly. Alessandra's hand drifted to the golden desert eagle at her side. Someone who finishes what she starts. The weapon seemed to glow in the subdued lighting of the memorial hall, its surface reflecting the soft illumination that bathed the names of the fallen. For 5 years, it had remained hidden just as she had, waiting for the moment to emerge again. I read the after-action reports from Gibler. Tarasova said, they never made sense to me how one operative, even one with your skills, managed to eliminate 14 hostage-takers and extract 38 civilians. The reports were incomplete, Alessandra said, deliberately so. Because of the leak? Because of what I discovered inside that embassy, Alessandra corrected. The hostage situation was manufactured, a test run orchestrated by people within our own government. They wanted to see if they could stage a crisis that would justify certain security protocols being implemented. Tarasova stared at her. You mean they were willing to sacrifice those people as a political exercise? Not willing, Alessandra clarified. Eager. The hostages were selected specifically because they had access to information that could have exposed early elements of Shattered Mirror. The terrorists were mercenaries hired to eliminate them while creating an international incident. And when you realize this, I changed the mission parameters, Alessandra said simply. Instead of a quiet extraction of key personnel, I made it loud, saved everyone, made it impossible to cover up, created a story so compelling that it became legend. Which is why they tried to kill you in Tangier. Tarasova concluded. You were never supposed to realize what was really happening in Gibraltar. Exactly. Alessandra confirmed. But their attempt gave me the perfect opportunity to disappear, to become someone else, to infiltrate their organization and learn their true plans. They continued down the hall in silence, each lost in thought. The bronze plaques gleamed like judgments, reminders of the cost of the shadow war they had waged for so long. Does it bother you, Tarasova asked suddenly, that your greatest achievement is known only as a rumor, a story told by those who were not there? Alessandra smiled faintly. Recognition was never the point, Zephyrin. The people who walked out of that embassy alive, they know. Their families know. That is enough. They reached the end of the memorial hall, where a single empty plaque awaited the next name to be added to the wall. A grim reminder of the nature of their profession. When this is over, Tarasova said, will you come back officially? One mission at a time, General? Alessandra replied. We need to focus on stopping Obsidian Shard first. Tarasova nodded, accepting the deflection. The team will be waiting in the command center. Captain Halverson was quite surprised to be included. His surprise will make him cautious, Alessandra said. And caution is what we need right now, not bravado. As they turned to leave the memorial hall, Alessandra paused, looking back at the wall of names one last time. So many lost, so many sacrificed for causes they barely understood. She had come close to joining them permanently, had carried her name on that wall for 5 years. Part of her felt it should remain there, a reminder of what was lost even when the mission succeeded. You said the woman you were died out there, Tarasova observed, following her gaze. What did you mean? Alessandra considered her answer carefully. Faith, she said finally. Faith in the system, in the chain of command, in the inherent rightness of what we do that died in Gibraltar. What returned is something else, something clearer. Clearer? I see the world as it is, not as I wish it to be, Alessandra explained. I understand that power corrupts, that systems fail, that people betray, but I also understand that individual actions matter, that saving 38 lives was worth the cost, that stopping Obsidian Shard is worth whatever comes next. Tarasova studied her old friend's face, seeing the new lines, the hardened resolve, the wounds both visible and hidden. And after, what comes after for Alessandra Rissin? I do not know, she admitted. I have been someone else for so long. I am not sure Alessandra Rissin still exists beyond this mission. They walked in silence to the elevator that would take them back to the command center, where Lieutenant Cattery, Sergeant Lovevet, and Captain Halverson awaited their instructions. The team that would help Alessandra infiltrate the Norse control center as Margot Verne, spring the trap set by Obsidian Shard, and hopefully expose the conspiracy that reached to the highest levels of government. As the elevator ascended, Alessandra checked her Golden Desert Eagle one last time, a ritual that had become second nature over the years. The weight of it was familiar, comforting even, a constant in a world of shadows and betrayal. One thing I have always wondered, Tarasova said, watching her. Why keep such a distinctive weapon? A standard issue firearm would draw less attention. Alessandra holstered the pistol. It was never about practicality. The man who gave me this weapon, my first handler, told me something I never forgot. He said, carry this, and you will never forget who you really are, no matter what role you play. Wise advice, Tarasova noted. He was eliminated 3 weeks later, Alessandra said matter-of-factly. Another early victim of Obsidian Shard, though we did not know it at the time. The Golden Eagle became a reminder not just of who I am, but of why I do this work. The elevator doors opened, revealing the bustle of the command center. Lieutenant Cattery spotted them immediately, her expression a mixture of nervousness and determination as she approached. Major, we have completed the preliminary analysis of the Norse access protocols, she reported. There are indeed 3 separate authentication systems, just as you predicted. Good work, Lieutenant Alessandra said, and the rest of the team. Sergeant Love has finished the equipment prep. Captain Halverson is reviewing the facility schematics, as you requested. Alessandra nodded approvingly. Then we are ready to proceed. Tomorrow morning, Margot Verne arrives for her scheduled audit of the Norse platform. By tomorrow night, we either expose Obsidian Shard or they gain control of America's most powerful weapon system. No pressure then, Tarasova said dryly. For the first time since her return, Alessandra laughed. A genuine sound that turned heads throughout the command center. Just another day at the office, General. She stepped forward to join her team, leaving behind the shadows of the past 5 years, focusing entirely on the mission ahead. The woman whose name remained on the memorial wall might be gone, but someone new had taken her place. Someone forged in betrayal and tempered by solitude. Someone who understood that true power lay not in weapons or authority, but in the willingness to stand against impossible odds. As she approached the planning table, her golden desert eagle caught the light, a beacon in the dimly lit command center, a reminder of promises kept and debts yet to be paid. The team looked up as she joined them, their expressions a mixture of awe and determination. They had been chosen for this impossible task, to stand against a shadow organization with tendrils throughout the government to prevent a conspiracy years in the making from reaching its culmination. Let us begin, Alessandra said simply, and the final briefing for Operation Shattered Mirror commenced. Subscribe to the Ordinary Heroes.